Hello again. Today we're going to do some question and answers. I get these questions mostly on the internet. We get them also when we travel, but the ones that get on the internet that I write folks back are always pretty much the same ones we get when we travel. So it's good that it works out like that, because really when we talk about Christ and we talk about especially our union and coming to understand the different aspects of that, pretty much the questions that people have are the same questions everywhere we go. So, start with this one. I put up a little statement on the internet one time, and this is what I said. We are one with Christ in the same way iron is red hot. The iron remains the iron, us, and the heat remains the heat, Christ. But the iron, in union with the heat, glows red. And where does one leave? And then where does one leave off and the other begin? So it is with us, like sunlight in a plant, which causes photosynthesis, like light diffusing through water. All of these are pictures of us in Christ. It's two in one. And now someone responded to that statement with this question. Fred, I still get hung up on the idea of volition, will, occasionally. Is it simply a matter of perception and faith? And I answered, actually it is a simple answer. We complicate it by turning it into difficult theological treatises, which I'm guilty of. When we realize Galatians 2:20 personally for ourselves, as we are meant to by the Spirit, that it is no longer I, but Christ living, and that there is also now I who is still living, doesn't make logical sense, but revealed in the Spirit, then who is doing whose will? Where is the separation between I as separate and Christ in me joined to me as one? 1 Corinthians 6:17. We cannot really make that separation. So then we join in Jesus' own word, I can of mine own self do nothing, and the Father that dwells in me, He does the works. Did you hear what I said? We say the same thing. I can of mine own self do nothing, and the Father that dwells in me, He does the works. People said, how did you do what you do, Jesus? He says, the Father that dwells in me, He does it. It was like he was saying, well, I don't really know. I just trust Him to do it, and He does it. I know that's how it is with me. I don't know how He does it. He just does it. I say the Father does it. How do you do that? I don't know. The Father does it. So He is in us, and therefore that is our own confession and truth as well as His. Since it is no longer just me living as me independently alone, but now in a permanent union reality, He and I, as it states in John 17, as one. We have the same oneness with the Father Jesus had with the Father. That's in John 17, verses 11, 20 to 23. So what He says, Jesus says, about His life with the Father, I say. Therefore, regarding God's will, then I also go with Jesus on that one too. My meat is to do the will of Him who sent me and finish His work. John 4:34. Now how can I claim that? I mean, I'm just a human. How can I claim that the only thing I want to do is God's will? That sounds kind of highfalutin. It sounds like I'm trying to be Mr. Joe Holy, Mr. Pious Man. Because I don't have to pull it off. I trust God to fulfill His own word in me. Remember, one of the laws of faith is that what you take takes you. What does that mean? It means that I look at this chair before I sit in it, and I don't really have a solid if I've never sat in it before, I don't really have a completed knowledge that the chair is going to hold me up. By faith, I believe the chair will hold me up. Because, it's a pretty good bet. Faith doesn't just go out into some nothing. It has some reason for being there. And so I reasonably expect the chair will hold me up. And so I come to my moment of faith when, as I'm sitting, there's a point with your knees where you let go and you can't get back up by the power of your knees. You have to go all the way down. That's your moment of your faith leap. And so when I actually sit down on the chair, now what's holding me up? the chair, the object of my faith. I placed my faith in the chair, and now the object of my faith has taken me over, and so that it becomes the thing holding me up. So faith is completed at that point by the thing which I've taken has taken me. Now, I take a chair, and it holds me up. I start out in faith, and then the faith is completed by the upholding of the chair. Well, the same thing with Christ. We take Him by receiving Him inside us, into our hearts, into our understanding, into our minds. We say, okay, Lord, you've got all this. I just trust you with all of it. I let go and let you have it. Well, guess what? He takes that. And just like the chair upholds me when I sit down in it, Christ upholds me when I sit down and rest in Him. In moments of temptation, getting back to our subject, like Jesus in Gethsemane, we are pulled back into a temporary false separation, as if I had a separate will and desire of my own. But that is not the truth. It is not what I live from, and through the temptation, the Spirit pulls me back into what is the truth, which is, not my will, but thine be done. Do you see? Jesus really had no separate. People are always talking about, but Jesus had His own human will. I don't really understand why people want to really promote free will that much, because free will has only gotten us in trouble. My will joined to God's will, now that's a good will. That's the right kind of will to have. A free will really, in a sense, doesn't exist. Oh, I do get to choose whether I want to be God's or not, whether I want to get out of Satan's kingdom and be into God's. I get to choose that. But after that, well, then God's in me to will and to do of His good pleasure. Before that, well, people don't like to hear this, but we were run by another before we were saved too. It wasn't just us alone trying to be good or not being good. We were run from within by a false god. The god of self for self, the god of I be for me and to heck with you. And that God ran our show, and we did his lusts, and we did his desires. But now that God's not in us. The new God is in us. The God of righteousness, of holiness, of purity. He's the God in us. And now it's His will that we seek within us to fulfill. But He wants us to be conscious sons who understand what we're doing. So that's why we get to work all this out. And we get to talk about it. And we ask questions. And we get to hear from others who have had maybe some greater experience than we have. So that's what this is all about. Learning that it's not my will, but His, but thine, which is being done in my life. And we willingly do that. Now I say this is my own testimony, but you can make it yours, because the ease of faith is how we do this. And remember, what we take by faith takes us. You think, well, I can't do that. I can't make God's will my will. He might ask me to do some really scary thing. Well, He might. But that's not the point. If He does ask you to do some scary things, listen, you'll have the strength, the ability, and the desire to do it. It won't just be you. You know, somebody once said that to do God's will is to do the opposite of what you want to do. Well, that's hogwash. We desire to do the things of God. It was said of Jesus, the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. He couldn't help himself. He thirsted and hungered to do the things of God. Well, that's what happens to us. His Spirit comes into us, and we hunger and thirst to do His will. So His will is the only will I know. I seek no other will. People might accuse me of being prideful or presumptuous for making so bold a statement. Who are you to say that? But we don't say it in ourselves, but in the faith of God, who dwells in us and who, as He did in Paul, works mightily in us. I used to think Paul was boasting in himself when he said that. But now I know he knew to the depths his own utter weakness and nothingness, and that is the place from where we are able to say, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father does the works. Is it boasting or is it faith? It is boasting, but not in myself alone, but in the Lord. So then, is it perception or faith? Yes, it is both, along with, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord.